we would have moved on. My mother would have picked us up and took us to the States in 1977. And there, we would have gone to, all my family would have gone to university. Myself would have gone the furthest in that I would have attained a PhD and then returned home in 1991
Yeah,
to
you
make my contribution
okay?
here.
Yeah, you jump a little fast for me because now I want to learn a little bit about how was that for you transitioning from Nevis to America. Was
That
it?
was rough.
Yeah, I was about to say because I know
It was rough.
I grew up here in a territory outside of
Yeah,
America, and when I went to the States, it was a little different and more obstacles than I expected.
yeah. It was awful for me. I cried. Well, a lot of people were happy to go to New York and live their life. I miss being home, and it happened to be 1977. That year was one of the worst winters in decades in New York, and so we felt the full brunt of it. I actually thought I was going to die
Mm.
from the cold. It
Yeah.
was it was that cold.
Yeah.
So that experience, kind of shaped me into my understanding and consciousness that this is not the place for me. I'm here for a reason to get educated, and then I'm going back.
I have to agree with you. I know my first winter in college, I said it on the air before. I thought I could get by with a jean jacket, and I had a horrible experience. I had to buy a real winter coat so that I could survive. And
Right.
when my brother came to school, I made sure he didn't suffer like I did. I made sure he had
Mhm.
a winter coat that looked like he lived in Alaska. But I told him, trust me, you don't worry about other people laughing at you. You put this thing on, and you're going to feel warm and get through classes and stuff. I know I was trying to play cool with a jean
Yeah.
jacket, and it didn't work out for me.
Yeah, it was like that for most of us in the Caribbean, accustomed to sun all year round. No winters, to no set of different spring clothes and summer clothes and winter clothes. The one set of clothes we had,
Correct.
which was all weather wear. But the challenges were also very new because the funny thing is, coming from a Caribbean island, you always look to America as the great hope. Everybody has a chance. But the funny thing is, when I got to New York and went to high school there and to college, the first level of racism I felt was not from white Americans or anybody else. It was from Black Americans
Hmm.
who could not accept the fact that we were there for a purpose and
Yeah.
we were doing
And then
exceptionally well in
the
school.
their main comment was you're from Jamaica.
Yeah, yeah, I get all the time.
Yeah.
Even now when I travel abroad, they think Nevis is in Jamaica,
Correct.
or someplace else.
When
And
and look,
so we always had a
I
distinct
tell them,
advantage.
I'm from the U.S. Virgin Islands, and they still say Jamaica. So I mean, they could get confused a little bit.
I get it.
With Nevis, you could say, okay, well, Nevis, British, Jamaica, maybe the same. But when you hear U.S., how are you going to put U.S. inside of Jamaica? You can't
It,
really.
it, it, it's a lack of the kind of um, education that
Correct.
we here in Nevis, I suppose it's similar to you in St. Thomas. We focus, geography was a subject by itself. It wasn't part of anything. And so we had knowledge of other of other countries, other customs, other peoples. We were required as students to draw basically a cartographic map of the entire Caribbean, of Africa, of the U.S., North America. That was part of the exercise of training us that we are not on this world by ourselves. We are other people with other territories. And so we had an experience of having that knowledge, which a lot of students in our age group in the U.S. did not have.
Well, I did a speech one time to my cousin at a graduation because I was still in kind of school, and I told him the main thing of any young person leaving from the Caribbean. I had said Virgin Islands, but it's in relation to anybody, whether British Virgin Islands, Antigua and Guyana, St. Kitts, Nevis. You're from the Caribbean, and you know where you're going to, whatever state it is. So you know about yourself, and you know about them. They don't know about you. They could only assume.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
have the advantage. I remember I was in my suite mate when I was a freshman, well, my roommate, and then we went. I didn't have the money to come home for Thanksgiving, and most of us don't when we travel to America. because of the cost of traveling. And I remember my roommate's brother was one of those individuals. I try and keep it clean. One of those individuals that try to look down on people and talk about us because they don't know us and where we from and we on an island and say certain things and stuff like that. So I went along with the game he was playing because he didn't know where I was from. He didn't know what I had. So I told him I had to catch a kayak to Palau, and then from Palau I would catch a tugboat to St. Pete, and then from St. Pete I go to Puerto Rico to make phone calls whenever I wanted to America. So he went along with that, and this is at a dinner. This is a Thanksgiving dinner table and stuff like that. Make a long story short, his parents came to visit, and my mom took them around, and they were totally shocked of they're like, where did Larry grow up? And they had to stop by the house, and in this house, she's like, in this house, that's not how he made it sound. He said that he had to catch he was in like a hut type of house that had to catch a kayak to Palau, and from Palau to St. Petersburg, and then make calls in Puerto Rico. So my mom called me after she dropped him back to the cruise ship, and she said, what the heck did you tell these people? I said, I tell them what they want to believe. If they want to believe that, that's on them. So I always tell people from the Caribbean, you know where you're from. You know what you have, and you go into a place that you know what they have, but they don't know what you have. So you could put whatever story you want to make them feel. So like I said, I went along with the story. If he wanted to feel that way and he wanted to feel above me, and I know he wasn't above me because I know where he lived and I know how I live. So.
And that is why it is so important for those of us who have shared that experience to make sure that we do not have that repetition right here in the island.
Correct.
That persons who come here understand that this is ours. When I go to America or any place else, I can be called, and I have been called many things, because I know the objective is not to stay there among anyone. My objective is to return home among my own and feel comfortable here, because from here, not one man jack can chase me from here.
Correct. When you moved and you said you didn't like it in 1977, did you, your mom, and your siblings go along one time, or was it a gradual change?
Yeah, we all went. My sisters were up there already. My brother, he was in St. Croix. But the three last kids, my two other brothers, she made a move, and she didn't even tell us anything in advance. She just said, we're going.
Yeah.
When someone's close, we're gone.
Yeah.
And you had no time to prepare, to say goodbye. You're not going to see me for a long time again. It was heartbreaking, because I had my mind set on becoming a fisherman, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, well, you can become a fisherman if you want to, but you will be the most educated fisherman there is.
Well, like how the saying goes, teach a man how to fish, he'll fish for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Give a man a fish, he only going to eat that one day.
She was very big. Yeah, she was very big on education, and I've gotten that from her, and of course my dad. But what I find in returning home, so many of us here on the islands have this illusion still that it's easy out there. It's not. It's very, very difficult. And when you're faced with the difficulty of having everyday challenges and still have to deal with overt or covert racism, or you have to deal with the being in somebody else's space, it compounds the problem even more.
Correct. When you moved and you were living there, did you decide which university did you go to after your years at high school?
Yeah, the first stop I had was a university in New York called Stony Brook, out on Long Island. So I would have done a Bachelor of Science there in biology, and then after leaving New York, I got a full scholarship to West Virginia University. It was the only one that gave me a full scholarship. I had other
and the full scholarship was for your master's.
Yeah, I went there for my master's, and I did such a good job of it that they invited me to stay and do a PhD.
Wow.
But I really had no intention of following up with a PhD so quickly.
Okay. Well, before we go to the
But
PhD, let's back up a little bit to the bachelor's. You said your major was biology. Was biology by choice because you enjoy your life at
it was my choice. It was my choice. I love science. I've always loved science since high school. It was my favorite subject, especially biology. So in high school, we'd have done chemistry, bio, physics, math, but biology was always my favorite. And so when I had the opportunity to apply to Stony Brook University to pursue a Bachelor of Science in Biology, I jumped it. I got accepted to a few other schools upstate, but the one in Long Island, I got a partial scholarship. My sister Judy, God bless her, she would have helped me to get, help with tuition and stuff like that. My family all pitched in.
And that means you commuted. That means you commuted. You didn't stay at home since your family was there.
Yeah, it was very supportive. I would stay on campus for the days. Most days I stay on campus, and then weekends. Some other weekends I would take a train from Long Island to New York to the Bronx, and get a proper Sunday meal or something like that. Because we were
saltfish and them things.
Yeah, we were living on mackerel and dumplings and sardines and with rice,
Yes, correct. And onion
cut up. Occasion I came home. Yeah, I remember one occasion I came home and my mother was like, "Oh my God, what happened to my child?"
You're so thin.
I had looked really scrawny. Yeah, I had, and to this day, if I see a can of mackerel, I want to throw up. I don't want to see a can of mackerel again.
Let me go on a quick break, and you make me miss the first one. Let me go on a quick break, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half. Okay?
Okay, cool. All right.
Oh, before we go on break, if you could tell me, say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
The St. Thomas Stroke Support Group, Inc., in recognition of November being National Caregivers Month, will pay tribute to male caregivers in our community. We are extending an invitation to the members of our community to join us in this special fundraiser of gratitude and celebration as we recognize male caregivers. This breakfast will take place at Victor's new hideout, November 8th, 8:30 until 11:30. The honorees are Mr. Stan Mason R.N., Mr. Percy Foy Jr., Mr. Virgil Jones, Mr. James Boogie Ferguson, Mr. Michael Toussaint, Mr. Franklin Cobra Biden. Come out and hear special guest speaker, Mr. Edgar Baker Phillips, speaks about his experience as a caregiver. He threatened to divulge the good and the bad. Get your tickets now from Cheryl Gibson Bag in the Niski Center and all members and honorees for only $40. This is the Caregivers Breakfast you don't want to miss. See you at Victor's on November 8th.
Attention all private homeowners and contractors. East Caribbean Metals, located on the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, have affordable pricing on all roofing material, PVC pipes, steel, and much more. Call East Caribbean Metals, 1-784-456-1843. Remember, your U.S. dollar goes further when you purchase your building supplies from East Caribbean Metals. Visit www.ecmil.net for more product information.
This is Greg. I live in Virginia. And to stay connected and informed to my community, I listen via live stream to www.cbn-virginislands.com.
Hi, good day. Do you live in the BVI or the USVI and want to advertise your product? Well, you've come to the right place. On FM 90.9 and FM 92.3, you can advertise your business or your event. All you have to do is call Tanya at 407-719-2666. 2635. Call Tanya if you live in the BVI or the USVI and want to advertise your product or your business and you want to reach more listeners. Call Tanya at 407-719-2635.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to 90.9 FM. My name is Lawrence Boschulte, and my guest, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Hello?
Yes. If you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization.
Oh, yeah. Yes, my name is Dr. Kelvin Daly. I'm with the Nevis Reformation Party here in Nevis.
Great. We're almost there to talking about the problems and situations in Nevis, but I'm almost finished with you in your background. So after you finish your 4 years with the undergrad, the Bachelor of Science in Biology, your next step was which university and what was the master's on? West Virginia.
Yeah, after my bachelor's, I moved on to West Virginia and did a master's in animal science, animal and veterinary science to be exact.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked at that because I think you guys have a program, FOSS, in St. Kitts have a veterinarian program.
Yeah, there's a vet program at Ross Vet.
Yes.
Down there in St. Kitts.
Yes, in St. Kitts. Yes.
Yeah.
So when your animal science is the same thing, right? In the same degree.
Animal science.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you do, my focus was on mostly research, so it's more applied research than anything else.
Okay.
That took me 2 years to complete. And then once I finished that, even before it's finished, myself and my major professor, my main advisor on the master's program, he would have offered me to stay on and do a PhD in animal science also.
Wow.
And so that was done. I did that in 3 years. So 4 plus 2 plus 3, it's a lot.
Yeah, that adding up a lot of times. I shock you didn't stay in the States after you got the degree for your PhD, and they wanted you to teach at the university.
Well, I wasn't about to stay around. I had several offers from research labs around the country. You were teaching positions that were available. But I did not want any of that. I did not want to get caught up in the system and then end up being, caught, trapped, and can't get out.
Correct.
My objective was always to get out. I saw my brothers get trapped, getting jobs and buying houses.
I was about to say the same thing. I'll jump in and say the same thing you said. The minute getting a job is one thing, but the minute you buy a house or you do an investment to that type of degree, it's harder for you to leave now because now you're caught between the amount of money you spend. Instead of coming home, like you say, if you come right home, you ain't get no investment. But for one, you take a job. So then you might be in an apartment. So if you take the job for 2 years or whatever, you might decide to come back home if you're renting a place. But the minute you take that investment to buy a nice car and then you go and buy a house, that's it. Because now that house is a 20-year, 30-year investment that you have to pay off. And there's no way normal people are going to have that ability. So then they get stuck. Then they get a taste of the stateside life, and they don't really... Because then when they come home, I can't speak for Nevisians or individuals from St. Kitts. I know in the U.S. Virgin Islands, when they get a taste of America, and they come back home and they see our power going off, and the prices of food and different items... They say, no, my son, we ain't coming home. We staying in the States.
Yeah. But see, there was a bigger reason for me. I've always been very, very patriotic, very nationalistic in my thinking. And so I always figured that where can I best apply my knowledge, my skill set? In the U.S., I'm just another scientist. I'm just another person in a university or a lab somewhere. But on Nevis, where you have great need for the sort of information that I had and the skills that I brought, I found that it would be more helpful for me. My life would be more fulfilling if I came back home and made my contribution. So it's not just the weather and all this. I needed to make a mark where I felt more important to do so.
Correct. Yes.
Many persons don't look at it like that. People look at it like, listen, I gotta get mine. I've never been materialistic. I've never been that kind of person who wants the best of anything. My satisfaction always comes from sharing and knowing that the skill sets I have can be used to empower other people. I've always felt like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And not only that, then I'm the type of person when I go away, I tell people all I need is air conditioning and an ESPN. You have most women, they want the high-end stuff, the upscale the situations, and some men too. I just more like you, a simple life. I'm a farmer. So a farming person, you ain't going to really see them with no big fancy stuff outside. They just farming. That's all they're doing.
Right.
So you
and the funny thing is, when I moved back home, all I had was one suitcase.
Yeah, you didn't invest too much yet.
One pair of shoes, and sneak up your sleeve. And I was on that plane. And came home. And when I came home, I didn't jump on the government roll. I actually started my own farm. I opened the first commercial broiler farm on Nevis in 1991. My family was very supportive in helping with the financing. I got a bank loan to help, and we were doing very, very well. Unfortunately for us, the hurricanes of 95, two back-to-back hurricanes in 95, put us on our butts, and then tried to rebuild, and 98 finished us off. So I left that business. I went into teaching at the Charleston Sixth Form College, where I taught science. And then from there, into agriculture. We became a director of agriculture and then the permanent secretary in agriculture. And this is where I always felt I belonged, in the field of agriculture, food, sustainability, food security, nutrition security. And that is where I made my biggest impact, I believe. Some may argue the impact is greater in education, but for me, practically speaking, the tangible benefits of me being the director and then permanent secretary in agriculture has left in my mind the greatest impact on the landscape of Nevis that I'm proud of.
That's great to hear. As when you taught in 2013 to 2016, explain a little bit about what you gained from teaching. Was it in the college itself, or was it?
Yeah, well, I started teaching in 1998 at the Charleston Secondary School at Sixth Form College, and then I would have gone back into agriculture, and then I became the president of our largest college here on Nevis, local college, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College on St. Kitts, next door. And so I was there for 3 years, from 2013 until 2016, until fortune smiled against me, and the politics, long story. And from then, I've been into politics full time. In 2016, from 2017, I joined the Nevis Reformation Party, and I've been very active ever since 2017 in the party. I never really took on politics before then, and the reason for going into politics was quite simple. I looked at myself as fairly intelligent, very outspoken, and would speak my mind on any matter, no matter what political party was in power. And that did not resonate well with people in government. And so, I decided, if I can be treated this badly, what about somebody else who is less able to defend themselves?
Yes.
And so I became a public advocate in politics, hoping that persons would, be treated better, much more kinder and with more empathy than I was treated. And so since then, I've been on the side of making sure that people do have a voice through me if they wanted it, And of course, I would have a voice in the community to make sure that we get proper representation, that politicians are held to account, they are transparent, and they must answer to the people.
Great information. As if you could explain a little bit for me of the Nevis Reform Party and what, and I'm only saying this, I know people who some of the individuals listening from Nevis and St. Kitts know about the party, but a layman like myself, right, I would need just a little information so that we can have a better conversation in about 20 minutes or so.
No problem. The Nevis Reformation Party was started in 1970. It is the oldest party on Nevis. The other party on Nevis is this Concerned Citizens Movement, and they're the ones in power at the moment. Our national hero, Sir Simeon Daniel, is the one who became the first premier of Nevis. And so we have a long history of the party, that is, has a long history of representing the people to understand that people need a hand up sometimes and not to be kicked down, that people need a voice. And so we have championed the empowerment of poor people, working class people, ever since we got started in 1970. It came out of a tragedy when the Christina sank, and we lost over 330 lives, most of whom were New Vision traders who went to St. Kitts to sell, people who were visiting St. Kitts at the time for commerce, to visit family. People were coming in from the Virgin Islands on vacation in August. And so out of that tragedy came the evolution of the Nevis Reformation Party, and we have been a force ever since then. So after independence in 1983, Sir Simeon Daniel became the first premier, and then he was followed by Vance Amy of the CCM, and then Joseph Parry of the NRP, and then currently Mr. Mark Brantley, who is now the premier of Nevis. All right, so it's a long, twisted evolution in our politics, but we pride ourselves mostly and fairly on the fact that we have managed to develop this country with very little resource. We brought in the government of Sir Simeon Daniel, brought the Bank of Nevis, which is our largest commercial bank. He brought the Sixth Form College where I taught. He brought, so many developments. He brought the Four Seasons, which was our flagship hotel on Nevis here. And so with so little resource, he was able to basically spin that little straw into gold for us. And we have never been the same since. He really transformed the island of Nevis, and it is why he is our national hero. When we celebrate Heroes Day here in the Federation on September 16th each year. So, it's a long history of community service, of building communities. We did the largest affordable housing scheme on Nevis to make sure families and households had shelter that they can afford without having to break the bank. The largest asset you'll ever own in life is a house. And so many persons were desirous of having that opportunity to advance themselves. We also were very big in education. Our mantra was at least one educated person, one university-trained, graduate in each household. All right, so we were big on education, big on agriculture, big on empowerment, and creating kind of institutions required for a modern society to thrive. It's unfortunate that we lost the government in 2013, and we've been in limbo ever since. And that is where we are.
As chairman, and I know you said you're in the minority now, which senators do you have on the island of Nevis?
What?
Which we call them senators here in St. Thomas. What do you call individuals of power on the island of?
Oh, they are ministers. They got junior ministers, which are the senators, equivalent to your senator. And then we have, of course, the elected parliamentarians. Those are called ministers. So we have in the government right now, the parliament is controlled by the Concerned Citizens Movement. They have 3 elected members and 2 senators. And we have one elected parliamentarian in the person of Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, who is also the party president of the Nevis Reformation Party.
Yes, I interviewed Ms. Hodge about two weeks ago. As an individual now who's the president, what do you see? I think I asked Ms. Hodge the same question, and she mentioned that elections aren't for another 2 years or whenever the premier wants to call it.
Yeah. Right.
How do you get? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying
Go
how do you get, now that you know that an election might be coming up, but most of the time the premier isn't going to call anything anytime soon because he might feel that it's not in his favor. So he'll wait until he sees something in favor until he calls. Well, how do you keep the momentum of your party going until the time that it's called or that it reaches the maximum length of time?
No, that's a good question. We have in Nevis 5 parishes, and each parish under NRP has a constituency branch. I'm in St. Paul's, so we have the St. Paul's NRP constituency branch, and similar to St. John's, St. George's, St. James, and St. Thomas's. And so each branch, constituency branch, has a chairman. I happen to be the chairman of the St. Paul's constituency branch. And so we try to be very, very visible in our community. We will have events. We have a regular breakfast sale. We give quite a few free breakfasts to persons who are less fortunate in the community. We have a very active caretaker in the person of J.D. Keynes, who goes around and do most of the house-to-house visits, and a lot of that. And she is very active in the PTAs and stuff like that. So, on a national level, we have regular events. We just came out of a convention. We had a General Council in October, and so we are very visible. We have 3 radio programs per week. I myself host one on Saturdays from 1 to 3 called On Target. I'm also on another program called Tell Me on Thursday evenings from 8 until we finish normally by 10:30. And then on Monday evenings, the caretakers would have a program called Your Voice with NRP. That's on Monday evenings, this evening actually, from 8:30 until 10. And so those candidates for the NRP will be hosting regularly those events in succession.
Understood. Let me take my second commercial break, and we'll be back after these about 2 minutes. If you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Dr. Kelvin Daly with the Nevis Reformation Party.
We'll be right back.
At 340-643-5837. Do you, as an adult, want to donate monetarily or in-kind services to the U.S. Virgin Islands Soccer Association or New Vibe Sports Club? Then call Carol at 340-643-5837. Help us continue to do great things for our community.
Calling all caregivers. The St. Thomas Stroke Support Group, Inc., in recognition of November being National Caregivers Month, will pay tribute to male caregivers in our community. We are extending an invitation to the members of our community to join us in this special fundraiser of gratitude and celebration as we recognize male caregivers. This breakfast will take place at Victor's new hideout, November 8th, 8:30 until 11:30. The honorees are Mr. Stan Mason R.N., Mr. Percy Foy Jr., Mr. Virgil Jones, Mr. James Fogey Ferguson, Mr. Michael Toussaint, Mr. Franklin Cobra Biden. Come out and hear special guest speaker, Mr. Edgar Baker Phillips, speaks about his experience as a caregiver. He threatened to divulge the good and the bad. Get your tickets now from Cheryl Gibson Bag in the Niski Center and all members and honorees for only $40. This is the Caregivers Breakfast you don't want to miss. See you at Victor's on November 8th.
Happy speaking, how may we help you? Yes, all of our cakes are created from scratch, allowing us to offer over 50 flavor combinations. We also have a selection of black cake, rum cake, and tarts. If you want to visit us, just go to our website, www.simplydesserts.net. The number is 443-226-0102. We serve the Maryland, D.C. area and soon are going to ship nationwide. And again, visit www.simplydesserts.net with an S at the end. Enjoy and have a great day. 443-226-0102. 443-226-0102. Yeah!
Thank you so much for staying tuned to 90.9 FM. My name is Lawrence Boschulte, and my guest, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Yes, Dr. Kelvin Daly. I'm with the Nevis Reformation Party here on Nevis.
Okay, great. So let's jump into one of the main reasons you're on and explaining to me and some of my listeners. I know, like I said, I know individuals listening in Nevis knows about some of the issues, but the Special Sustainable Zone, SSZ, protected proposal for the southeast coast of Nevis. Explain that a little bit, and then we'll jump into the Destiny project.
Okay, fine. Well, as indicated, the Special Sustainability Zone is an idea, as the premise says, a project on the southeast of Nevis, which encompasses quite a large acreage that, if you're familiar with Nevis, those persons, it basically runs from Long Point all the way around to Indian Castle. So you're looking at just about 4 square miles of proposed development on the southeast. Now, one of the reasons why this has caused such anxiety is because it has been kept secret from the people for years. The first indication we had of an SSZ, or at the time was called a sovereign enclave, was back in November 2024. But when we started to investigate, these gentlemen, these people of the SSZ, were on island for years, plotting and scheming to acquire quietly up to 2,400 acres of land. Initially, they wanted more than that. They wanted 6 square miles, but they have now settled into 2,400 as the minimum requirement that they need.
Minimum is what you're saying.
Excuse me?
You're saying minimum. So if they don't get the 2,400 acres, so say they only get 2,000 of the 2,400, then they won't do the project?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen if they don't get to 24, but they've expressed in their proposal that they require 2,400 acres. There was a meeting where the Deputy Premier, Eric Evelyn, disclosed that developers have now acquired 68% of the 2,400 acres that are required. That is a lot of land.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that Nevis is only 36 square miles, once you remove the footprint of the mountain, then you are left with about probably 30 square miles. When you factor out all the development that we have ongoing already, you're down to probably a few square miles of lands available for future development. And for us to say we're going to give it away in perpetuity to a developer, lost from us forever, it is unconscionable that this should happen. And so we have been questioning this proposal ever since it was discovered, and it was discovered quite by accident. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he told me about an offer that was made to him. His family has quite a large holding in the area, and he was approached for them to sell their lands. And I questioned him, and I became more and more frightened by what he was telling me, because he started mentioning names like, enclave, sovereign enclave. These people want to have their own state within a state. They want their own government. They want everything separate and apart from Nevis while being part and parcel of Nevis. And so I started to investigate, and the things that you started to discover, how long they've been operating at this. Because the earliest land sale that we discovered was in 2021, when the Premier was asked about this rumor that, the Southeast is going under this one development. He said it was a rumor, and he's not going to respond to rumors. But yet, 3 weeks later, he was in Parliament speaking on behalf of the zone developers, speaking to giving his support to the passage of the SSZ bill, which is now an act. And so everybody was caught off guard. If he did not know in July of 2025 definitively what these people were about, how is it that a bill was able to move through the Parliament just a few weeks later and pass just 10 days later into what is now an act, which is a law? So the incredible thing about it is that we have been duped for a long time. We have been, a lot of the information is dripping out, drip, drip, drip. And every time it drips out, it's a tsunami. It gets worse. Because we are now being told by the Premier that these persons will be citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, and that the quantum of persons coming will be between 7,000 and 10,000 adults. These are persons who will be coming in from the UK, US, Asia, wherever they come from. And if you're familiar with Charlestown, they'll be 1 mile out of the city limits in Charlestown. 7,000 to 10,000 Anglo settlers with CBI citizenship who will have the power to vote, my brother.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question.
Yeah, if you read their philosophy, because these are what we call libertarians, the far-right conservative people who don't believe in government, they want to have it their own way. If you read their philosophy is very, very straightforward. We are here, we will be coming to take over this island. They're not hiding. They're out there, out and out with it. They are here to come into Nevis, to dominate legislatively, to take over our government, and they know about our clause in our constitution called 113, which gives Nevis the right, unilateral right, to secede from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So they are now speaking among themselves, and in print, mind you, telling their supporters, let's go down to Nevis, dominate the legislature with our vote, and then employ Section 113 of the Constitution so that we can control the island of Nevis. We will have our own island. We can even rename it if you choose. So they're not hiding, my brother. They are very outrightly saying what their plans are. What is very disturbing to me is that the Premier, the leader of this country, and his cabinet, and I might say even the federal government under the Prime Minister, have been leading this charge against the people of Nevis, the best interest of the people of Nevis. Because how can you in good conscience look at this, their philosophy, objectively say, I see no danger here. I see no problem here. It's okay if they come here in the tens, in the thousands, because talking to the Premier in the last town hall we had last week, Monday, he says he has a legislative fix to prevent them from voting. How do you have a citizen of your country, which there will be, how do you put a legislative fix to keep them from voting? It is impossible. The Constitution guarantees certain rights as a citizen. You cannot keep a citizen from voting. You cannot. They will be residents on Nevis. They're not like coming in So you can't say, well, you need a residency requirement. You must be here for 2 years. No, they will be living here among us, well, not among us, separate from us, and enjoy all of the concessions. Our security services cannot go onto that property without invitation. They have their own rules. They call it the zone laws. They have bylaws. They have their own customs. You know, they have their own port. So who guarantees that port security when you can transport anything across that border? There are simply too many problems with this to make it for it to make sense. Another issue the Premier spoke about, which has caused great anxiety, and he's trying now to fix legislatively also, is the idea that these persons will not be allowed to buy properties outside of the proposed zone area, which is nonsense, because the very bill, the very development agreement and the SSD Act itself spells out clearly and definitively these persons will be allowed to expand the zone, and if you refuse their right to expand the zone, we will be in breach of the contract, of the agreement, and therefore we will have to be penalized financially. It is built in. So the Premier, having had pressure brought to him to say that, well, if you allow all these millionaires free on the island of Nevis, they will outprice every division, buy every plot of land they could get, and we will have no place to go. And so he is trying to appease the people of Nevis by saying, I will fix it. I will prevent them from buying land. You can't prevent a citizen from buying land. How are you going to do that? The Constitution does not allow that. So all of this smoke and mirrors to say we're going to put legislative bandages on open source will not work. And he knows that. But the tide is against him. Public opinion is against him. And so he feels he has to go and lie to the people to tell them he can fix it. The only fix for this bill, this SSD bill, or this SSD Act, is to repeal it. Is to repeal it. Nevis will be destroyed by this bill. This bill and the agreement is the greatest existential threat to the survivability of Nevis. We do not want this. The people have spoken clearly. We do not want this. But what has happened, my brother, is that because of the monumental failures in administering his office, in administering this country, he is now dependent on the hope brought in by the SSC settlers to finance his government, to finance the hospital expansion, which is $50 million he needs, to finance geothermal, which requires about $500 million. So they've gone now. The idea of sustainability in the SSC, the Special Sustainability Zone, the sustainability part of it has now gone to the window. Because when they were advertising that this is a special sustainability zone, and they stressed sustainability, because these developers had said, we are going to provide up to 70% renewable energy. We're going to provide our own water. We're going to provide our own waste disposal. We're going to provide our own hospital and healthcare services. We're going to provide our own security. And all that. What we are now recognizing, the Premier has now turned at 180 and said, we, as the government of Nevis, will be partnering, no longer sustainable. We will be partnering with the zone developers on healthcare. They're going to finance the hospital, and they're going to finance the geothermal energy production system. We are going to be tied to this project ad infinitum. It is dangerous because when we thought about geothermal, we saw geothermal as a change agent for us, Nevision, to empower Nevision, to build our society. How we saw it. Now, if you are going to allow these persons to finance it and partner with them, my brother, to finance it, well, who owns it?
Yeah, them.
You no longer will own it.
Them, yeah.
They will own it, and they will sell us the power, our power back to us.
At their cost.
How can this be at their cost? We will lose control of what we have thought of for a long time as the most powerful change agent in our history. CBI, our Citizenship by Investment Program, is sliding down. It's sliding into the abyss. Geothermal energy and the potential of geothermal energy is what is keeping us hopeful for a brighter future. And here is the Premier, having squandered hundreds of millions of dollars from the same CBI program, is now hanging his hat on this zone developers to save him. We have now almost $600 million worth of national debt just for Nevis, with 13,000 people resident on Nevis. How did you get there? How did we get there? How did we get to 600 million? And on top of that now, we need another 50 million for the hospital. We need 140 million for the airport expansion project. We need 500 million or plus for the geothermal. We are in a terrible shape, and that is one of the reasons why these persons, having recognized the weakness in our government, having recognized the greediness of our government, has stepped into the void and said, I will be your big brother. Let me finance all these things for you, and everything will be all right. Just give us 2,400 acres of land. Just allow us to take over the entire southeast of our country. Just let us plant our own flag. Give us our own port, our own security. Let us run things for ourselves. We don't want your intervention. This is a trade-off. They want what they want. In exchange, they want to take the little bit we have. And so I can't imagine for the life of me why anybody in their right mind, forget politics. Politics is tribal. We all know politics can be tribal. But I can't understand, and I really would like to engage anybody one-on-one to debate these issues, the project on its merit. Not no hyperbole, not no emotion, pure logic. I would love that opportunity. You understand? Because we are not getting this from our government. One other thing I must share with you. If Nevis, for example, is a change in government, and the new government comes in 2 years or whenever, and decides to tear up the agreement, assuming that the agreement is signed by then, and we stop the project, our penalty, the penalty imposed on the people of Nevis, and by extension the people of St. Kitts, is $23 billion US. That is what we will have to pay. If they walk away from us, they only pay $75 million US. Look at the disparity. How can anybody, any leader, with any ounce of common sense, can look at that disparity and say, that's fine, that's fair, that's okay? Cannot be. Cannot be. So you have the issue of the voting rights. You have the issue about being able to buy land outside of the zone. And then you have this issue of the penalty. How can anybody look at these situations and think it's okay?
Yeah, I agree.
Are 10,000.
Before we go too far in, I have to take a commercial break. But before we go to, we coming back? Don't hang up yet, because I know normally I finish my first hour, but I'm going into a second hour with you. So I want to let you know that I'm going to go on a quick commercial break. Before we go on the commercial break, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
All right, Dr. Kelvin Daly. I'm with the Nevis Reformation Party on Nevis.
Great, we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
And to stay connected and informed to my community. I listen via live stream to www.cbn-virginislands.com.
Hi, good day. Do you live in the BVI or the USVI and want to advertise your product? Well, you've come to the right place. On FM 90.9 and FM 92.3, you can advertise your business or your event. All you have to do is call Tanya at 407-719-2635. Call Tanya if you live in the BVI or the USVI and want to advertise your product or your business and you want to reach more listeners. Call Tanya at 407-719-2635.
Calling all caregivers. The St. Thomas Stroke Support Group, Inc., in recognition of November being National Caregivers Month, will pay tribute to male caregivers in our community. We are extending an invitation to the members of our community to join us in this special fundraiser of gratitude and celebration as we recognize male caregivers. This breakfast will take place at Victor's new hideout, November 8th, 8:30 until 11:30. The honorees are Mr. Stan Mason R.N., Mr. Percy Foy Jr., Mr. Virgil Jones, Mr. James Foggy Ferguson, Mr. Michael Toussaint, Mr. Franklin Cobra Biden. Come out and hear special guest speaker, Mr. Edgar Baker Phillips, speaks about his experience as a caregiver. He threatened to divulge the good and the bad. Get your tickets now from Cheryl Gibson Bag in the Niski Center and all members and honorees for only $40. This is the Caregivers Breakfast you don't want to miss. See you at Victor's on November 8th.
Hi, if you want to be married towards the end of the year, drink Guava Berry. Buy a bottle or two and give a friend. Hurry, call now while there's more to spare. To place an order, call Darwin at 340-626-0838. That's 340-626-0838 or 407-719-2635. Call now.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to 90.9 FM. My name is Lawrence Boschulte, and my guest, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Kelvin Daly from the Nevis Reformation Party here in Nevis.
Great information so far. But before I let you go forward, I want to ask you a quick question about, you mentioned between 7 and 10,000 individuals might come in and start voting. Let me explain something in the U.S. Virgin Islands. You have to be, and see, because we are American, it's touchy. I go on interviews quite often on various radio stations, and one of the questions that they ask me is registering to vote and how you could be a registered voter. Now, whether you come from the Eastern Caribbean, Europe, or America, everything is the same principle. If you're here 90 days and you provide a passport, a birth certificate, or naturalization paperwork, you could be a registered voter. We do not deal with if somebody from America comes in and try to use their ID as a driver license, we cannot use that. But I say that only because 90 days, and they didn't even proof back in, I've been on the election board over 16 plus years. Back in the day, we had the same thing what you just talked about is what jolted my memory. When you said 7 to 10,000 people could come to Nevis and could vote. We have something similar to what you have as a SSZ. We have a department that provides tax incentives for companies to come to the U.S. Virgin Islands and register here so that they could have tax breaks. So when they register here, as long as they live half of the 365 days, they're entitled to the tax break. Something like that. You would have to ask in the other individuals. I don't really follow it too well. But I follow the voter registration because I'm a board member. And our law says 90 days. But there's no proof that somebody who fly off the plane that day could go straight to the Board of Elections and register to vote. As long as they have their passport, they go in with a passport. And back in the day, we used to challenge them. We used to ask them for a cable bill, a phone bill, a water and power authority, the power bill, something to prove that you've been living here for X amount of times. But they don't ask that anymore because America has passed so many different laws on questioning people for certain things like that. So a person could fly in from, let's say, Atlanta, because it's a direct flight, straight from Atlanta, land on St. Thomas, show them the passport, ain't living on St. Thomas more than a day, and go get their voter registration card. Walk out with a card that says their voter registration. So that's why now
That is weird.
yes. So now I'm switching to you to try to understand this 7 to 10,000. How are they going to decide a citizen, and what's your procedure in St. Kitts and Nevis in order for somebody to be registered to vote in the next election?
All right. So that's a good question. The SSD development over the New Southeast, the proposed development, let me put it that way. The premier indicated 7 to 10,000 adults coming in to live, settlers. Once you come in, how it is set up or will be set up, you come in as a homeowner, you buy a property. Once it's valued over, I think it's 350,000 EC dollars or US dollars. I can't remember which it is now. You can then use that purchase and to apply for what you call a CBI citizenship. All right. So you're using your investment to acquire citizenship.
Let me jump back. Maybe I misunderstood. See, you're saying over a house at 300,000?
Yeah, if you invest, I think it's 350,000 or 250,000 US dollars in a property, then you can then use that certificate that you purchased property of that value to apply for what you call a CBI citizenship.
Wow. Okay, and before you go further, now I have to ask something personal for myself. My father-in-law has land, I forget, Browns Hill or something. You guys have a Browns Hill? I don't know. Maybe
yeah.
Yeah, so he had property there. If my wife decided to build on that land, is she, well, in the BVI, you would be considered a belong if you leave and you could get paperwork. For her, as her father being in the vision and has property there, if she builds on the property, can she become a citizen and vote?
Well, she should be a citizen by birthright. Once you have a parent who was born here and you're one generation removed, you don't have to go through all that. You simply apply for your citizenship.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, that was just for me personally. Sorry. So go ahead now with your SSD. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So once you become compliant, once you are compliant with the and you qualify to be a CBI citizen, you can now use your passport. You think it's a new passport. Go to the electoral office and get a voter's card. It's simple as that.
So your voter's card have your picture on it, or is just a piece of paper?
Your voter's card has your picture on it, and again, even that voter's card is problematic because they're now saying you don't have to vote with your card. You can vote
Correct.
with your passport.
And I go back to that.
You can vote with any national ID. So I don't even know why they bothered creating this national ID card, voter's card, and then telling people, well, you don't really need it to vote. It's nice if you have it because it has on all the information. But once your name is on the list, the voters list, you can vote with, as simple as swearing to on the Bible that you are the person whose name appears on the list.
Yeah. See, I interview.
I mean, this is ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. I interview people.
This is the avenue for fraud.
Yeah, I only wanted to say that I interview individuals from across the country, and this sounded the same thing like in the States. In the Virgin Islands, we used to have you had to vote with your voter's ID. They had an issue stating that we can't do that anymore because America has passed some laws saying that you can't question a person who they are, which makes no sense to me. But I have a bunch of uncles. I have 8 uncles. A lot of us look alike. I could walk in and say, my name is Christian Boschulte. So how are you now going to prove that I'm not Christian Boschulte? I always show my
Exactly.
ID when I vote, because first of all, my name is pronounced Boschulte but spelled with an E instead of an A, and somebody might put it in wrong and then say that you're not on the list and start a whole mess. So I don't go through this stateside or America view that you just walk up and say who you are and then they let you vote. I hand them my ID so they could type in the computer and find me, and everything is straight. But I agree with you go ahead.
No, the funny thing is, this complaint has been on the books for some time. Since 2017, I recall our first complaint that you have to tighten up. You have to, whatever loopholes exist in the voting, in electoral laws, you have to tighten up. If you are going to have a situation where persons are required to have a voter's card to vote, have them have the card. Because then you open up yourself for also fraud and mistakes. You know, if a gentleman comes in with a thing in his passport, his picture is on it, and you go to the voters list and he's there, he can vote. If his picture is not there, but his name appears in a letter somewhere, he can vote. Right? These are all tricks that the government keeps using to stop the voters list with persons who should not be on the list. But to the point of the SSV voters, you know, and I've said before, and I keep saying, they are openly advocating for their supporters to come down to be a part of the zone and take over the government of Nevis to the point where they can now issue the call to the Governor General that 113 is now in effect, that we need to secede. So what are Nevisians supposed to say about that? You know, it just we cannot afford to go back to colonialism. We can't afford to go back to where people are telling us what to do. We have lived through that period of our lives, our forefathers paid with blood for this opportunity for us that we have now, and we cannot go back to taking orders from some people who don't think like us, who don't worship like us, who don't feel like us, who are not part of us. We cannot go back. This is not Christopher Columbus in 2025. We will not go back. All right? But the Premier and his cabinet are hell-bent on ensuring that we do go back under the yoke of colonialism. We will not go back. And the people of Nevis, whether they're in the diaspora, there are a lot of Nevisians living in St. Thomas and St. Croix and John,
correct,
in the BVI, they need to understand that we are facing in Nevis the greatest threat there is ever in our history. They need to understand this. They need to get information to understand, to hear all sides, because all the other side is saying, we will bring jobs. They can't tell you what job, but we will bring jobs. We will bring, what do you call it now, education for our students. We will bring this, we will bring that.
Wait, what did they say bring it?
We will bring opportunities.
The video that I saw, they stated that they'll provide $1 million for them to go abroad. And my question when I saw that was like, well, who's making the decision which child is going?
Well, the government will make that decision.
You're right? Sure? The government or destiny?
The responsibility, yeah, of course, the responsibility of a government is to educate its people. You don't farm that out to anybody. You don't give away that responsibility. You take that responsibility seriously, because it is on that basis of education that we're trying to build a country. So if these people don't provide the $1 million, what do you do? Throw your hands up in the air and say, well, you know, better luck next time? That is your responsibility as a government. When NRP was in power, hundreds of students were sent all across this world to be educated. We had a program, what we call a youth at risk program, because at that period of time, 2006, 2008, we were plagued with gang violence. Plagued. And the Premier Parry at the time and his cabinet decided, listen, let us look at our young men especially. How can we best rescue them from themselves? And they came up with this brilliant idea. Let us send them off to Trinidad for trade school, for skills development. And so guys from different parts of the country who were once warring at each other were now on the same campus in Trinidad, learning plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, welding, painting, carpentry. They came back here and started their own businesses, Mr. Lawrence. They came back here in Nevis and made their own contribution from that little endeavor. That is what I'm talking about when NRP says that we are the best thing for Nevis. Believe it, because we have proven it. We have demonstrated it. Right now, we have a welder here in Nevis. If he was to go back to Trinidad, they would welcome him in open arms because they didn't want him to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He can do any type of welding. You want to go underwater, you want to go above water,
Wow.
You want to weld aluminum, you want to weld copper, zinc. He can do it. He can build anything. Gifted. We have a plumber, same guy who plumbed my house. He was a student in the program. We have other persons who have benefited immensely from that training, and they're now upright, stable, family people. All they needed was an opportunity, and Mr. Perry and his government paid for that opportunity for them to go and get educated. We had a lot of students studying in Midwestern. We have an agreement with St. Croix campus, USBI St. Croix campus. We have an agreement with campuses throughout the U.S., Florida, that our people will be treated, will be given a lower rate, tuition rate, as if they're in country, in state tuition.
Mm-hmm.
We have negotiated all those to make sure our people are educated. All right, UE is packed with our students. If you look across the world, there are Nevision professionals that benefited from those trainings, paid for by taxpayers of Nevis under the Nevis Reformation Party. And so, I don't like the idea that we are now looking to others to educate our people. We need a critical mass of educated people in our society if we are going to prosper into the future. We should not be worrying about having specialists in healthcare. We should not be worried about having specialists in climate change and all these other engineering professions. We should not be worrying about where we're going to find the professionals to deal with geothermal. We should have already in progress training for those disciplines. So depending on destiny for $1 million as if that's going to transform Nevis, it's ludicrous. Ludicrous. We have about in the teens here in Nevis, I'm thinking, teens of persons who have accessed tertiary level training. Teens. When you compare that with Trinidad, Trinidad has 60-something% of the population who access tertiary level training, and most of that is skills-based. When you look at the U.S., 50-something% skills-based training, tertiary level training. So why are we in the teens in 2025? How are we to build a society that we're going to look after ourselves, people with vision and skills to make it happen? How are we to build that society when we have in the teens of persons who have access to tertiary level education? How are we to do it? We can't. And this is why people like that comes out of the SSC can come here and fool our leadership here. Fool our leadership. Listen, you went to the same universities as these people. I went to the same universities as them. You're not smarter than me.
Correct.
You're not better than me. But somehow they come here And we roll out the red carpet as if they're Jesus Christ, as if they're infallible. Rather than investing in the brain power and empowering our own people through the same incentives, through the same concessions, we will be better off if we looked among ourselves. The zone out there runs quite a distance. And we had in our manifesto in 2017, we are going to build the infrastructure needed for the landowners, which are all divisions, by the way, all divisions, to access those lands. So they can create their own industries, they can have their own access. Right now, most of the lands are inaccessible because the government has refused to put in the road. With the road goes in, the water follows, the power follows, the communication links follow. The Nevisians who own those lands have been bawling out for decades, give us access. We are paying taxes on our lands and we have no access to our land. The Premier describes the land as worthless, as useless, desert. But why is it desert and they still want to take it over? What do they know that we don't know? What can they do that we can't do?
Let me go now.
All right? As a small boy, we roam those lands. We know what's there. We know all the farming that went on there. We know the potential that's over there. But to make a case to the people of Nevis that these lands are worthless, the Premier of the country is leading the charge for Nevisians to sell their land, telling people that cash is better than land. What kind of movementness is this? How can a leader of a country be encouraging its citizens to sell their patrimony, which they will never ever recover? One gentleman told me that he has used his land for decades as collateral at the bank to educate his children, to build his business. Now, if he was to sell that land, where will he go? What will he use for collateral? Buy another piece of land someplace else? You can't afford? This is the threat that we are facing here in Nevis. A government that is bankrupt of ideas, who have now thrown the Hail Mary pass down the field, hoping that it gets caught. Not realizing, or even worse, realizing the consequence, but don't care.
Let me jump in ahead. Let me go on a quick commercial break. Before going to break, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
All right, Dr. Kelvin Daly. I'm with the Nevis Reformation Party here on Nevis.
We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Need a truck to assist? Call 340-643-6089. Do you have a fridge, a washer, or dryer, or a living room set to pick up from a furniture store, hardware store, or a yard sale? Do you need a truck to take any items from your yard or your house to the dump? Call 340-643-6089.
Attention all private homeowners and contractors. East Caribbean Metals, located on the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, have affordable pricing on all roofing material, PVC pipes, steel, and much more. Call East Caribbean Metals, 1-784-456-1843. Remember, your U.S. dollar goes further when you purchase your building supplies from East Caribbean Metals. Visit www.ecmil.net for more product information.
Calling all caregivers. The St. Thomas Stroke Support Group, Inc., in recognition of November being National Caregivers Month, will pay tribute to male caregivers in our community. We are extending an invitation to the members of our community to join us in this special fundraiser of gratitude and celebration as we recognize male caregivers. This breakfast will take place at Victor's new hideout, November 8th, 8:30 until 11:30. The honorees are Mr. Stan Mason R.N., Mr. Percy Foy Jr., Mr. Virgil Jones, Mr. James Fogy Ferguson, Mr. Michael Toussaint, Mr. Franklin Cobra Biden. Come out and hear special guest speaker, Mr. Edgar Baker Phillips, speaks about his experience as a caregiver. He threatened to divulge the good and the bad. Get your tickets now from Cheryl Gibson Bag in the Niski Center and all members and honorees for only $40. This is the Caregivers Breakfast you don't want to miss. See you at Victor's on November 8th.
Hi, I'm Lonnie. And I'm Layla. And we live in Maryland. Every Saturday from 12 to 2, me and my family listens to 90.9 FM, Just Us Radio Show. And we think that you should too. So if you want to listen to 90.9 FM, go to www.cbn-virginislands.com. Don't forget to tell your friends.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to 90.9 FM. My name is Lawrence Boschulte, and my guest, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Yes, my name is Dr. Kelvin Daly. I'm with the Nevis Reformation Party here on Nevis.
Before I let you talk about some other issues, I still have to jump into this voting situation because I'm looking at the numbers that you mentioned earlier, and also I forgot her title, Miss Hodge. When I interviewed, what's her title again?
She's the party leader, party president, and she is the parliamentarian for St. James.
Yes. So she as well mentioned the same numbers that you said, between 7,000 and 10,000 individuals coming into Nevis. And while others, because I'm political and I know you're political as well, understand those numbers, individuals who are just voters might not understand. But if you bring it in let's go to the minimum of 7,000. That's more than half of what your current voting populace is. If you mentioned to me that currently there's 13,000 people who...
There's 13,000 individuals, including children and underage persons. So in terms of the voting population, that 7,000 will be more than the voting population of Nevis.
Wow. So as a party leader and trying to get everybody ready for this next election, it must be something... I know you like you say, you mentioned to your friend about that one, the one that was looking to sell a land or whatever his situation is. It's individuals like him, because I'm sure he's a registered voter, and talking to, we here in the U.S. Virgin Islands have problems with young people voting between the ages of 18 and 30. So mostly the individuals you're going to have voting is normally between 50 and 80, though that voting range of are interested because they understood exactly what you're talking about. They've been through having to go to the bank and being told no, and don't understand why. Because I'm going to ask you some bank questions later if we have time, because we only have like 30 minutes left. But these type of ideas, when you talk to individuals, are you now bringing up to, because I'm trying to understand how the individual in Nevis got in charge, and with what did he promise in order for individuals to vote for him, that his party, and you said the party, I think it's CCM. How did the CCM have that movement going to get into office? But as you stated, now it looks like, well, the average citizen, if you're sitting down watching this and not understanding how important it is to vote for this next election, I'm just shocked that more people aren't up in arms like yourself.
You're absolutely right. You're right on track. We have a quite large section of society who are too busy trying to make life than to be worrying about some land out in the southeast. So we have that. They don't recognize the real threat, and they have been sold a bag of goods by the Premier and his cabinet. That, listen, you won't get a job. You won't have a business opportunity. And so persons are willing to take that risk and say, listen, I don't care about the lands over there. If they want to come, let them take it. Not understanding the politics of it, not understand the dynamic nature of this threat. we who have seen it firsthand and lived it firsthand are more cognizant of these things, and therefore are more bent on make sure it doesn't happen to us. My concern, I'm old now. I mean, I got a few summers left in me, but I have kids, and I want to make sure that there's a Nevis for them, because they love Nevis as much as I do. They might go abroad and study, but Nevis is always home. When you travel abroad, when I travel abroad and I go to New York to visit my family, 2 days the most, I want to come back. You know, I don't feel good until I'm back. That's how much Nevis is in my blood. And I don't want to see that the experiences I had as a child and as an adult be wiped off the map, because it will be wiped off the map. You cannot have existing side by side two distinct communities. One populated by millionaires who are accustomed to have their way, who uses their money as a bludgeon against the rest of us, and us poor people trying to make life, just to stay alive. You can't have that coexistence. It's not going to work. Somebody is going to dominate something, because in the end, they want it all. They want the entirety of Nevis. And let me say something very, very quickly. They have been purchasing and been negotiating to purchase other huge tracts of land, not as large as the one in the southeast, but across the island. They've been buying up lands across the island. What is to prevent the premier to say, listen, since you have 200 acres over there in St. Thomas's, and you have 300 in St. James, why not just have all under the one agreement, even though the boundaries are not contiguous? There's nothing in the law that prevents it from happening. So you can actually have 300 families living in St. James, which can vote in St. James. You can have 200 families living in St. Thomas's who can vote in St. Thomas's, and you see the pattern of how easily you can start to skew the election results by having those people populating different areas strategically. All right? And so the greatest threat to us as a people, and if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat the mistakes of the past. You must be fair, you must know from whence you came and where you're going if you are to survive in this world. Nobody's going to give you anything. People are going to try to take what you have. It's for you now to have the wherewithal to say, no, this is a bridge too far. And let me say one other thing real quick too. All those landowners who sold, you'll be surprised by this, or perhaps Dr. Hodge would have told you so. But not a single one of them have been paid out. They have entered into contractual arrangements where they are given as little as 1% of the value of their lands down, with the rest to be promised, the rest to be given to them after 4 years. If the deal goes through.
So then if the deal goes through, then they get a land, but they ain't get nothing all the time that the land was not being used.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, not only is the 1% a ridiculous amount, but they're asking you to agree to have that 1% in an escrow account, which I am told the Premier's law firm has that service to offer. So the Premier's wife is the only real estate agent being used by the zone developers to acquire the 2,400 acres of land they want.
No,
the Premier's wife.
I was told that and I wasn't sure, but I wanted, because when you mentioned earlier, remember when we first started talking, you mentioned that the Premier didn't know. So if he didn't know and his wife was a real, they must not have good pillow talk.
Well, if you believe that, then I have a bridge in Brooklyn I want to tell
Yeah,
you.
that's what I'm saying.
Because
You mentioned it, and I hold back because I know why his wife was the real estate. So I'm saying if she's a real estate, and he said he don't talk about rumors, somewhere along the line they don't have pillow talk and they don't communicate.
well, somebody's lying, and I know I'm not lying, because we discovered as early as 2021 that they were quietly acquiring huge tracts of land. When property owners were asking them, well, what is this development for? Why you asking me to sell you my land? My lands are for my kids. They're saying it's a very, very important development that the country needs. That is what they've been told. And some people, especially those who live away, they've been harassed daily, emails, conference calls, text messaging, direct calls. Man, you're holding back progress.
I just want
the last person to hold out.
I want to jump in and tell the people listening that you're not lying, because my father-in-law, who owns property there, and before we had this conversation, before I had the conversation with Miss Hodge, before I was asked to do some of these interviews, not only in Nevis but also Dominica, he mentioned about 2 years ago about something like this, and now it's hitting me in my head about 2 years ago how he was approached on selling his land. And as you're saying, people calling him, like, first of all, how they found him in St. Thomas, I guess, like you said, they look at the records and want to know where the person live because you have to pay the taxes, and calling him too. And sometimes he's up in age, so he might one day just say, you know what, I don't live in Nevis anymore. I don't.
Exactly.
I going through this taxes all the time. I might just as well sell it. And like you say, now who will he sell it to? He's going to sell it to the highest bidder. But now it goes back to this 1% in purchase value, as you're saying, and then it might go in escrow. He might not even see it in the sense of how long this thing is taking.
Exactly.
I'll jump back to the 68% that you mentioned that earlier of the 2,400 acres that they saved there. But you made a statement a few minutes ago that made sense, that the people of Nevis have to watch out for, because it made sense of what you said. The premier might now tell this gentleman, you know what, don't do the whole 24 in that district. How about buying 100 or 200 acres in another district and put some individuals there for the voting block to now, because these individuals are going to try and keep the premier in there. So they'll say, okay, go in these different districts and improve, like you said, 300. It might not seem like much, but because of your voting numbers of 13,000 is so low compared to the Virgin Islands, I wasn't saying not much bigger. We have 25,000 in this St. Thomas St. John district and about 25 in the St. Croix district. That is low, a few, because everybody don't show up. You don't get 100% voting. So then you look at maybe 50% out of that 13,000. 7,000 might be because we have about a 50% ratio of people showing up to vote. So in St. Thomas, you average it out to about 14,000, maybe. That's a little higher, it'd be about 13,000 that shows up. That's half of the 25, or a little above half. So for you, your half would be about 6,500 if the half show up. And with that half, you're not getting 100% of everybody voting for the RFP or the CCM.
We are similar. We are similar with you. We get about 50+%. We don't ever get beyond 50 something.
Yeah. So then you have to go from that 50% that's showing up.
It becomes very critical.
Yeah. So then that couple hundred might not seem like much for when an individual who is listening to you, or whether this now or the recording that we'll have up. People have to understand 300 is a lot. That sways an election.
It's a huge lot. I mean, when you consider in St. Paul's here last election in 2022, our candidate lost by 22 votes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Probably a family that probably went on a vacation or had work and didn't want to. They're like, oh, man, he have it. He get a vote, man. He need my vote. I got to go walk.
Yeah, I think Dr. Hodge won a seat by 8 votes or 13 votes, something like that. It's crazy. I mean, how do you compete with that kind of money? You can't. And you said it right. these persons having sense what NRP stands for, they will never put $1 for us. They'll put $1 against us. And so what happens, and let me share something with you. You asked the question earlier, why does the Premier keep winning, or something along that line?
Yes.
If you look at the voter turnout in the last few elections, what the Premier has recognized is that his support among the natural born divisions has been decreasing precipitously. So what he has done, and it's quite clever actually, is to curry favor, as we say, with the non-national votes. You know, using especially persons from Santo Domingo, persons from the rest of the islands in the Caribbean, and giving them a sense of entitlement and empowerment, and using race to say the NRP don't like foreigners, the NRP don't like Indians, the NRP don't like this, and this race baiting or ethnic baiting.
Correct.
And so his support among that demographic, the non-national vote, is very steady and increasing. But his support among natural born divisions has been declining. So when you look at his program, when you look at his policy, he always tends to favor that demographic over natural born divisions. This is how he keeps winning, because he has the resources to bring in the plane loads of voters, because of rent a vote from Santo Domingo. Every time there's an election, 3-4 plane loads come in. They're resident of Nevis, but the names are on the list. I don't even know how they got citizenship to begin with. Something funny went on, because they're not a member of CARICOM. They're not a member of the Commonwealth. How did you get citizenship? They weren't even here long enough to get citizenship, because you got 2 years to get citizenship, either through marriage, which we discovered when Dr. What's his name now? Prime Minister came in. He said he discovered a fraudulent marriage ring where people were getting married to get citizenship, and he's going to investigate. And he never did anything. Okay. Never discovered anything. He said there were 2,000 people suspected of marrying, blah, 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 blah. A lot of talk. Nothing. Right? So that loophole where persons can get, within 3 months of getting married, citizenship was a big loophole that needed to be plugged. It's still unplugged. Still unplugged. All right? We don't know how all of these voters from the DR got citizenship. They fly them in, so they vote. So let's take for example, if the voting is on a Monday, they fly them in on a Sunday, fly them out on a Tuesday. See you in 5 years. This needs to stop, because then you have a government that is not representative of the people who they're governing. This rent-a-crowd business needs to stop. People need to be forced to re-register to make sure that you clean up the voters list. But that's not happening. Sorry.
No, I was asking you, how is the voting, like, I'll go through for St. Thomas. St. Thomas, I'm on the board for the election system. In order for me to get on the board, I had to get voted on the board. The supervisor of election is chosen by the board members, although a lot of individuals locally, sometimes, well, not a lot, but some people whisper saying the governor appointed the supervisor of election, which is false. The board of elections is 14 members, 7 from each district, 7 from the St. Thomas St. John district, 7 from St. Croix district. If the 14 board members got together and decided they do not want the supervisor of elections anymore, it can be done. It's not the governor. So how is your situation done with the voting?
You are leaps and bounds ahead of us in your democratic outlook of how this thing is done. The Prime Minister, and only the Prime Minister, chooses the 3 board members who sit on what you call the election commission. The supervisor
that's a
of
problem.
elections is chosen by the supervisor by election is not chosen by the commissioner. The supervisor is chosen also by the Prime Minister.
Oh, yeah.
All
Well,
right?
that's how
We have
it's
been
going to be hard to
asking
clean.
for-
It's going to
we
be
have
hard
been
to clean up your list.
Very hard.
Yeah.
We have been asking the government of Dr. Drew, because in 2022, Labour was in opposition on St. Kitts, and they promised that once they get elected, electoral reform will be on the agenda. We have written, and Dr. Hodge has written, to the Attorney General, to the Supervisor of Elections, to the Commission, asking for reform of how elections are carried out here on Nevis. We have asked simply, let us have an equal member inside of the electoral office. So each person is keeping an eye on each other.
Mm-hmm.
You have your CCM person in there, give us the opportunity to have somebody in there. So there is no hanky-panky. Not even that Dr. Drew is willing to give us. Because, you see, once you're out of government, the situations that cause you problems, that you promise to change, you now have the advantage when you come in. And rather than do what is right and set the record straight, you maintain that advantage. And so, I am at a loss, because the Prime Minister came in with this agenda called the Good Governance Agenda. I have not seen any good yet. I'm still waiting for the good. They have passed a series of laws, and you have to ask yourself, well, how are they going to enforce these? Because a law without enforcement is a useless piece of garbage, as far as I'm concerned. Here on Nevis is even worse, because we have what you call integrity in public life, a bill, or not a bill, sorry, legislation, and an ordinance, and the Premier, listen to this, amended the ordinance that gave him the power to name all, well, two for sure, of the members of the commission. The other one is named by the Attorney General, the Deputy Governor General, sorry. So you have 3 members in the electoral and the Integrity in Public Life Commission. 3 members, 1, 2, 3. The Governor General, her deputy, gets the privilege of naming one. How it works, the leader of the opposition, who should be Dr. Hodge, get the opportunity to name one, and the Premier gets to name one. But because there was an impact in the Parliament between a former NRP supporter and Dr. Hodge, the Premier reworked the legislation, which gave him the power to name 2 of the 3 members directly to the Commission. Took away from the Commission the investigative power of the Commission. Took away the ability, the requirement that you no longer, as a minister, have to submit any corroborating evidence that what you're submitting is true. So if, for example, you put on your declaration, which is mandatorily filed every year, if you put on your declaration that you have $200 in the bank, what used to pertain, you have to bring the bank statement to show you have $200. They have taken that out. You no longer have to bring any evidence that what you're declaring is actually true. You have there, he made sure he gutted the Integrity of Public Life. I personally have written to the Integrity of Public Life Commission. Others have written with matters of complaint about the government's actions, all to be told that we are helpless in this investigation because we have no power to investigate. What kind of kudo organization is this? Taking the taxpayers' money to do what? To receive declarations from ministers who can put down anything they want? It makes no sense. Mm-hmm. The whole system of governance has been corrupted.
Yeah, because now you don't know who is getting what type of money.
You don't. All right? This is a system that we have here that is working against the best interest of the people. I'll give you one little example. One little example. The Premier of Nevis has a law firm. Daniel Brantley is the name of the law firm. He, the Premier, is a practicing attorney, even though he claims he doesn't go into the court. The law firm is his and his alone. He is also the minister with responsibility for our utility company, Nevis Electric Light. We have only one. He has direct responsibility for Nevis. Would you be surprised, my brother, if I told you that Daniel Brantley, which is owned by the Premier of Nevis, has the legal retainer for Nevlec? And Nevlec is paying the Premier of Nevis law firm $8,000 a month just on legal retainer fees. And he is the minister with responsibility for Nevlec.
And is this the same company that...
How is that possible?
This is the same company that need $500 million to upgrade?
Yeah. This is the nonsense that passes of government here. This is the nonsense that we have to absorb as a people here in Nevis. In between 2015 and 2022, the then former Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, told the nation that he gave the Premier of Nevis between the years 2015 to 2022 $500 million as part of the CBI receipts. And I'm not lying to you when I tell you $500 million is not something you can put in a bank and in a safe somewhere and not know it's there. He said he spent it. But what did he spend it on? We don't know. We can't see any evidence. If I spend $500 million in a country like Nevis with 13,000 people, I should have a golden toilet in my house.
Yeah. Or don't have to pay power bill.
Exactly. So when he was brought to his attention that we do not know, he said, listen, don't worry about what I got from St. Kitts. Focus on what they kept for themselves. What kind of foolishness is this? You got $500 million on behalf of the people of Nevis. And we should not be concerned how that money was spent. And tried as he may, and he has tried several times. He cannot account for it all. Cannot. Impossible. Millions, hundreds of millions can't be accounted for. Hundreds of millions cannot be accounted for. How do you investigate that when you have no Integrity Public Life Commission with the ability to investigate? Now you have no Public Accounts Committee that can investigate. I mean, this is tragic. And anybody who wishes to engage in a conversation about how Nevis is being governed, they need to be honest with themselves. There's a gentleman from Africa says, if you came into government richer than you went out, you stole it.
Correct.
If you leave government richer than when you came in, you stole it. Because listen, I was a public servant. And some days you think you're making money. By the time you're paying your child's school, by the time you're paying your bills, you know how it goes, it's gone. You can't accumulate no wealth to the tune, the millions that these guys have. How did they get it? And they stand to make, between he and his wife, my brother, between Mark Brantley and his wife, projections are already being made about the quantum of money they will make if this thing succeeds. And we are talking between $90 and $120 million just for the two of them. In realty fees, in legal fees. This is the kind of calculation that boggles the mind. Even if you make $20 million, how are you making that on the back of people that you're fooled off and lied to? How is it you haven't told the people that you are selling these lands for development that will take over your neighbor's yard and your neighbor's house? You mentioned your family has land in Brown Hill. They are right up onto the edges of Brown Hill with this development. Where is Brown Hill to expand to? They can't go east. The only way Brown Hill can expand is west and south. But they want all of that land that would lead to the natural expansion of Brown Hill without any consideration for the people of Brown Hill. No or future generations. And that is why we are fighting this thing as if it's a crusade. We are fighting this as if our lives depend on it, because it does. I do not want to be taken over. I don't want to be overtaken, dominated. I'm done with that. This is our time.
I have 3 minutes.
This is Nevis time.
I have 3 minutes left for you to give your closing thoughts.
I just want to use my 2 minutes first off to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak openly on your broadcast. I'm certain you have quite a listenership among the Nevisian population, those perhaps directly or by parentage, and I welcome them. I welcome them to be a part of this fight. It is a war that we are engaged in here on Nevis. It may seem simple and benign to a lot of persons on the outside, but for us, we are fighting for our very existence. It is important that we understand the dynamics at which we are living in. It's important that we understand the Premier and his cabinet do not give a rat's tail if Nevis sinks or swims. We must understand that this government here has no good intention for the longevity of Nevis and his people. It is clear. They cannot fix this bill, this act, this SSC. They cannot fix it. It's impossible to fix. The only solution is to withdraw it, repeal it, burn it. We do not want no special sustainability zone on Nevis. We are proud people. We are welcoming people. And we do not deserve to be dominated by anybody from anywhere. We have survived hurricanes. We have survived enslavement. We have survived depression. We have survived a lot in our lives. And we will keep surviving. Because this SSD, if all Nevisians were to raise their hands and say, hell no, it will not succeed. But if people are vacillating, if people are sitting on the fence and looking at a couple dollars and saying jobs and opportunities, we will fail. And when we fail, Nevis fails. When we fail, Nevis fails. Thank you very much.
Hey, Dr. Daly, I want to thank you so much for providing the information to me and my listeners, and I look forward to having another interview in the upcoming months, okay?
No problem, man.
All right, thank you so much. That brings us to the end of this show. I'll be on tomorrow from 7 to 8 p.m.